places, everyone. Places. We're going to get started in just a matter of moments. Or just keep dancing where you are. Shaking on. Let's get everyone back to their seats. I think there might be some people coming in. There's also a couple seats. If there's a seat next to you, raise your hand. So there's a couple seats in the back over on this end. If you're coming in the tent right now, there's bunches of seats back at this end if you're coming in.
After a few weeks, you could find a puzzle toy to get the tree.
So welcome back. Oh, and there's a seat in the front. There's a front row seat. Somebody in the back want to move all the way to the front.
I tell you, just get it for a couple months and see if it works.
Welcome back to 2020 36th Annual Florida Storytelling Festival. There's two seats right here as well, if anyone's back there. Two seats right over here. All right, everyone settling. So a couple of things. Gratitude again to Accent Entertainment. Our sound booth over here is Ron Red. A round of applause. Thank you so much for making us sound good. And also for Saturday and Sunday, these evening concerts, we are blessed to have Interpretech interpreting for us. Thank you. We give great gratitude to all of our sponsors. You'll find them on the back of our program book. The McGlynn Foundation, Mount Dora Christian Academy, GoMountDora.com, Lakeside Inn, this wonderful venue that houses us. Thank you. Lake County supporting this event, the Mount Dora Chamber of Commerce, Advent Health Waterman, and the state of Florida with a generous grant from the Division of Cultural Affairs. We want to thank everyone who donates. We want to thank Morningside Storage of Eustis for gifting us a storage unit. We want to thank all the folks who volunteered and all the folks who helped to make this possible, the board, everyone. And of course, we want to thank all of you for coming. So one thing, these cell phone things, make sure they're off. And we are here to celebrate the art and craft of oral storytelling through community and connection. We want to celebrate diversity, our youth, and fellowship. Have you met somebody new here? Have you connected to somebody new? Yes, good. That's definitely top on our priority. Storytelling is the art of connection. I hope you've shared some stories. Now, story is a difficult thing to define. One of my friends decided to become a storyteller. And she told me, Dr. Joel, I wanted to be a professional storyteller, and so I decided I was going to make my own program. I was going to study. I was going to call up places, learn some stories, call some assisted living facilities. Do you want to have a storyteller? Do you want to have stories for your people? And they said, our residents do not like to be treated like children. And she said, no, these are stories for adults. That will be too risque. It's really difficult to figure out what is storytelling, and it is an experience. It transmits experience, emotion, and it goes beyond facts and figures and really touches our hearts, and story really fills us. I was having a conversation with someone in the festival, and I realized that here at the festivals now we meld two traditions: the personal narrative that you will see here on stage with our featured tellers, as well as the folk tales. And those personal narratives, they're going to connect you to their experience, and you're going to see the universal messages, see the diversity and the richness of the tapestry of life, and maybe take that into the context of your life, bring that wisdom in. Or maybe you will see the folk tales, those beautiful stories that have been crafted over centuries by people that we do not know, by people we still remember through story. Those flat characters that maybe you are every character in that story. Maybe you are Cinderella waiting for your rags to riches story. Maybe you're the prince with duties, waiting for love. Maybe jealousy rears its head in your life, and sometimes you're the ugly stepsister. No? Oh. And maybe, just maybe, sometimes in your life, you will be the fairy godmother to somebody out there. We are all the characters in every story at all times. And so I hope you learn from those universal messages, take them in the context of your life, and share the richness of story. When this event fills you up with story, may you go home and take it to everyone else. But we're still gonna fill you up. Are you ready for more? So tonight, we have our MC is Tamara Green, and she is from Odessa, right outside of Tampa. And Tamara was here for 4 years with the Youthful Voices program when she was volunteering on the board with the Florida Storytelling Association. And she remembers when it started, there were 3 up here on stage, and now it's grown to 7. And she is just delighted to see how this program has grown. So she's here back to MC for us this evening. Please help me welcome Tamara Green.
Welcome to the 36th Annual Florida Storytelling Association Festival, our our Saturday night concert. I want to welcome everybody here. Raise your hand if this is your first time here. Wow. Look at all of these first timers. This is your first time here? Well, wait a minute. We have got to put on a show tonight. We can't let you leave here not having a show tonight. We have 5 wonderful storytellers tonight. And our storytellers are, and I did something really special for them. I gave them some adjectives in front of their names. We have awesome Pete Abdella, spectacular Simon Brooks, dynamic Diane Macklin, captivating Jeff Doyle, who's going up first, and marvelous Morgan Mo Reynolds from way out there in Montana. We have some great storytellers tonight. You know, I heard this little tune in my head. I don't know, did I hear it on the radio or what? And it goes like this. Everything old is new again. And I thought about it. You heard that, haven't you? Have you heard it somewhere? Well, somebody said that the podcast is the big deal now. But it's really just a rollback of the old radio, isn't it? It's just the rollback of the radio. I can remember when my grandmother was sitting around the radio listening to the ball game. And boy, she'd listen to baseball all day long. It was intimate. It was magical. Sort of like storytelling is, right? Well, we're going to listen first to captivating Jeff Doyle because he's going to give us everything he has in terms of imagination. Yeah, he can remember himself telling Robin Hood stories and his Cadillac Enterprise tales. Ever since he was a child, he would sit around the fireplace and he would listen to stories and he would tell his stories. And he is also a Moth Story Slam winner in Michigan, and he was a feature teller at the International Storytelling Festival Exchange Place. He likes wild and funny stories, and he likes scary and heartwarming stories. Now tonight, I'm going to take them all on a ride. Well, we're all going to take them on a ride, right? And they're going to take us on a ride. I'm going to assign a car to each one of our storytellers tonight. I can do that. I'm the MC. So I'm going to assign the 1959 Cadillac DeVille in pink. Why pink? Because Elvis gave his mom a pink Cadillac. And they're going to give us their pink Cadillacs tonight. So sit back and relax with captivating our attention, Jeff Doyle.
I know that you are all concerned, especially the people that were here Thursday night and last night with all these children in the audience. I want you to know that we will all arrive home safely. Gotta get that just perfect. Well, the tent is full. Are you ready? Yeah! Let the adventure begin. Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no man has gone before. Or in our case, a 3-week vacation with my grandparents. My grandparents had invited my brother and sister and me on a trip to explore the American West. And we were excited to go because they said that we would get to see the Rocky Mountains. They said that we would get to see Old Faithful, that we would get to see moose and elk, and we would get to see buffaloes, and we would get to see bears. I could not wait to see a bear. I was so excited. Now, I don't know what drove my grandparents to ask their 3 oldest grandchildren on a 3-week vacation. I like to think of it as the great-grandchild experiment, that if things went well with us, they would take my younger cousins on vacation. That never happened. I loved my grandparents, but I absolutely idolized my grandfather. He was big man on campus. I mean that literally. He worked at Michigan State University, and everywhere you went on campus, people knew him. He was in charge of the food stores, responsible for buying groceries for the 20,000 children or college students that lived there. And it was a job that he took very seriously. Every Sunday, he would go out to the food stores to check on things when no one else was there. And if my brother Bob and I were standing around, he would take us with him. And we would marvel at the giant warehouse full of food. And then he would open the doors to the giant meat cooler, and he would lure us in. Big sides of beef hanging everywhere, and he would lure us all the way to the back, and then he would turn around, he would run out, he would hit the button, the giant doors would close, and then he would get on the PA and he would go moo, moo. I don't have nightmares often, but when I do, there are cattle in them. My grandfather was a gregarious guy. His glass was always half full. He loved to play poker, and it was something he took very seriously. Every Tuesday night there was a poker game with his buddies. It was said that if my grandmother died on Tuesday, that no one would find out until Wednesday, because nothing was going to interrupt that poker game. Yeah, he drank whiskey, threw the extra luggage up there, and we piled in to go. My sister and I got in the back seat, and my brother Bob, who was spoiled to death and feigned car sickness, got to sit in the front seat. Now, I don't know who designed Cadillacs in those years, but whoever it was must have thought it was really cool for the back of the front seat to be really high. Because if you were sitting in the back seat, you could not see out the front windshield unless you were sitting on your knees or you were Wilt Chamberlain. But the good thing was, you couldn't see out the windshield, but those people in the front seat couldn't see what you were doing in the back seat. And it was on that trip, the trip from Lansing, Michigan. It's a long way from Lansing to Denver, Colorado, where the Rocky Mountains start. And it was on that trip that my sister Chris and I became fast friends. She was 5 years older than me, and up until that point in our life, she had always kind of been the babysitter. But on this trip, she just got to be one of the kids. And we had a great time in that back seat. We played license plate games and sign games and told jokes. And she told me that if I practiced long enough, I could stick my tongue out and touch the tip of my nose. I spent hours doing that. But I got back at her, though, because I waited till she had a mouthful of soda, and then I told a joke, and she spit it right out her nose. It was somewhere in Iowa, and we decided we would start making peace signs at all the drivers that passed us. And then we giggled as my grandmother said, gee, the people in Iowa are sure awful friendly when they gave the peace sign back. But it was somewhere in Nebraska when we were at a roadside stop having potted meat sandwiches. How many of you people remember potted meat? Potted meat and mustard sandwich. Oh, yeah. So there we were. We were sitting there at the picnic table, and we started to look at that Cadillac with the fins on the back and that flying saucer on the top. And we thought, you know, if I didn't know better, I'd say that looks exactly like the Starship Enterprise from Star Trek. And then we thought, well, if we are riding in the Starship Enterprise, we must be the crew of the Starship Enterprise. My grandfather, he was Captain Kirk. Oh, for sure, he was brave and adventurous. My grandmother, she was logical as could be. She was Mr. Spock. Always keeping Kirk on course. My sister, she wanted to be Dr. McCoy or Bones. Her side of the back seat was the sick bay. Me, I was Scotty, in charge of the engine room. More power, Captain. And my brother Bob, he's a Klingon warrior. A Klingon warrior that had invaded the bridge and must be killed. We eventually arrived in Denver. The Rocky Mountains loomed in the background. The next morning, we got up early and we drove to Golden, Colorado to do that thing that you should always do with your grandchildren if you take them out west. We went on the Coors Brewery tour. And that's when we found out. That's when we found out that Kirk was harboring a secret that he had not even told Spock about. You see, as God had commanded Moses to build the ark, 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high, that car top carrier had been designed to be 4 cases long, 3 cases wide, and 2 cases high. Just big enough to fit 24 cases of Coors beer. Incidentally, just enough to supply a poker game for a whole year. Well, Spock was a little incensed. It won't fit. It'll crush the car. It'll scratch the car. It'll come off. Nonsense, said Kirk. That was designed by a General Motors engineer. It's perfect. And he threw down the luggage and put it in the back seat, and he put the beer on top. The good news is when we got back in, we were sitting on top of the luggage, and we could see out the front windshield. And the adventure continued. Colorado Springs, Bryce Canyon, Zion National Park, Dinosaur National Monument. We hopscotched across the West. And then we had to Salt Lake City to see Spock's relatives. The thing is, when you spend a couple weeks with your relatives, sometimes you find out some things you really don't want to know. And the thing we learned, a couple of things we learned. The first thing we learned was that Kirk had an insatiable need to always be right. And we pulled into a Red Lobster one night, pulled the Enterprise in, went in and had dinner. When we came out, Kirk started the Enterprise, lurched it forward, boom, boom, over the parking barrier. Who put that parking barrier there? Well, Spock said it's logical. The parking barrier was there when we pulled into the parking lot. No, it wasn't. I whispered to Bones, it must have been those damn Klingons. The other thing we learned was that Kirk was addicted to kaopectate, which would explain the 2 large jugs in the trunk. For those young people who don't know, kaopectate is what you take for an upset stomach, and it's white and gooey and oozy. The flip side of that was that Spock was addicted to X-Lax. It was kind of a yin and a yang kind of thing. You know, it seemed to work for them. The next stop, we spent a week in Yellowstone Park. And oh my God, we got to see Old Faithful, the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone. We got to see moose and elk and buffalo. But we didn't see any bears. There were no bears. I was so disappointed. That was the year they had relocated all of the bears in Yellowstone to the backcountry. So we didn't see any. But Kirk said, don't give up hope. Don't give up hope. We got one more thing to do before we go home. And Kirk had always said, you can't really appreciate a mountain unless you climb on it. And I said, that was great. And so we took the Enterprise and we found the highest peak and we climbed higher and higher and higher and higher and higher and poof, poof. Captain, there's been a disturbance in the storage compartment. Well, apparently Spock and Kirk hadn't been paying attention in science when they talk about how the volume of some liquid expands at higher altitude. And when we got to that parking area, stone parking area, and opened the trunk, those 2 bottles of kaopectate had exploded gloriously all over the trunk. Bones and I laughed hysterically in the back seat, giggled uncontrollably. The Klingon and the crew were forced out to clean it up. When they were done, Kirk shoved the towels, opened up the flying saucer, shoved the towels in the top because, God forbid, you would never let anything go to waste then. Shoved them in there. He shut it. He cracked the trunk so it would dry out. And we went off hiking in the mountain. And I have to tell you, Kirk was right. The views and the vistas were unbelievable. And beside the fact that we still didn't see any bears, it was a grand experience. After a couple of hours, we returned back to the Enterprise. Kirk shut the trunk. He got in, we all got in, and Captain, the dilithium crystals are dead. Well, it's logical, said Spock. You know, it had a light in the trunk. For those of you who knew those cars, if you left the trunk open for more than 5 minutes, the battery would wear down. So there we were at the top of the mountain, and the parking lot was abandoned. The sun was about to set. Spock thought we should wait for somebody to come and rescue us. But Kirk didn't think that was going to work. And then Kirk came up with a perfectly brilliant, perfectly idiotic idea. He said, you know, there's an intergalactic service station at the bottom of the mountain. And if we could just get the Enterprise rolling, we could coast it down the mountain to the bottom. So he got behind the wheel, and we all got out to push. And he said, push, push, push. It wasn't working. So he put Spock behind the wheel, and then Kirk got out with us. Push, push harder. And Bones said, damn it, Jim, I'm a doctor, not a pusher. We were laughing and giggling. Even Spock was laughing, but Kirk, he was not amused. And in his anger, he pushed so hard, the Enterprise started to roll, cracking over the gravel, and a little faster, that he was like, get in! There was no time to change drivers. He got in the middle, he shoved the Klingon against the passenger door. Bones and I clamored in the back, waiting for the adventure. This was great. We had a 95-pound woman behind the wheel, 6,500 pounds, what with 500 pounds of beer, 5,000 pounds of car, and 1,000 pounds of luggage and people. No power steering and no power brakes. What could go wrong? Well, at first it went pretty well. They were easing on and off the brake and going, you know, we were making our way down the mountain. And then they remembered the hoop-de-doo in the mountain. And when I say hoop-de-doo, I mean that's where the mountain goes back up before it goes down. And they were afraid that we wouldn't have enough speed to get over the hoop-de-doo. So they let off the brake. The trees started to go by. Mountain goat. Captain, we've reached warp speed. There we were. Apparently, Spock and Kirk didn't pay attention in physics either. When they talk about how much speed the train needs to leave the station to get over the hoop-de-doo. And they greatly over-anticipated the amount of speed we would need to get over the hoop-de-doo. And when we hit the top of that hill, the Enterprise was airborne! It came down! Crash! The strap broke! The load shifted! There we were, driving out of control around one bend and then the other and down a hill and then there they were. The whole family of bears. Right in the middle of the road. The flying saucer flew around. The other strap broke. Right over the bears. into the bottom of a lodge pole pine, and there was an intergalactic explosion of Coors beer and kale picnic. The likes of it have never been seen before. Animals came from out of the woods. Moose and bear and raccoons and elk and squirrels. There was gonna be a party. We got out of the Cadillac. We hugged each other. We cried a little. We laughed a little. And that's when Kirk and Spock turned back into my grandparents. And the Klingon and Bones turned back into my siblings. We eventually made it down that mountain. Those were the voyages of the Cadillac Enterprise. Its 3-week mission to explore the American West, to seek out new lands, to give grandchildren experiences they would never forget and memories that would last a lifetime, to take grandchildren where no grandchild had been before. And all I can say is, Kirk, Spock, mission accomplished.
That. Thank you very, very much. Wow, for those first timers, we're just getting started. Just getting started. So, our next storyteller up is Diane Macklin. She is a workshop presenter, keynote speaker. She has appeared at the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture and the National Association of Black Storytellers. And she has also appeared at the International Storytelling Festival, Exchange Place. If I were to assign a classic vehicle for Diane, I would assign the Corvette Stingray. Because it gives you it's low to the ground, and yet it gives you a smooth ride. And it keeps you at the edge of your seat. Please welcome to the stage, Diane Macklin.
I am now born differently. Oh, I'm a Corvette low to the ground. Woo! Now I needed you to do that because I need to feel better after falling down. Y'all don't know something about what we did earlier today, and he doesn't know it either. We drew sticks to see who would follow him. Now the irony of drawing these sticks is that I'm the tallest of all the storytellers thanks to my daddy. But I got the short stick. So I had to just go with it. You know, I'll tell you one thing about being with these tellers is that there's something for you to learn. They're like teachers. You know, from Pete, you learn that grounded space. He maximizes every word, every sound, and he can stand like this and you're mesmerized. And then when he raises up his pants and you see his socks, you're like, that man is spicy. Then you got Simon. You know, I've nicknamed him like, Simon, you're my brother. And Simon Simon, he goes, all this space, moving all around. I'm like, they say I have a lot of energy, but he has more than me. And you all won't know this. We were all walking, we were heading into Mount Dora, but I realized that there was a whole swath of people that need to hear their story. You're not going to go to your wife and tell a story about being a 13-year-old boy.